Baseball fans in Southern California wake up in the early hours of the morning to catch their favorite teams playing halfway around the world. But it's time for baseball to stop counting regular season games being played overseas in foreign markets. March Madness is one day away, and plenty more discussion of what is going on with the upcoming Paris Olympic Games and what is being done too with Major League Baseball as more unrest continues within the Players Association. That and more on a Hump Day edition of Press Row right now. This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information. Happy Hump Day, everybody. It is Wednesday afternoon, March 20th, 2024, and welcome in, folks, to another live edition of Press Row, covering all of the biggest stories of the sports day from the angle of the sports media and sports business perspective. Yours truly, Callan McClurg, back with you here from the home studios in San Diego. A tad bit cranky, a tad bit grouchy after watching my Padres, like always, lose to the LA Dodgers in Seoul, South Korea at the wonderful time of 3 o'clock this morning. But we are still, folks, going to plug away here and get through the program here today on this March 20th. As always, folks, we're live via the Coast to Coast Network on Facebook and YouTube and via the Callan McClurg Sports Twitch channel as well. Before we get in, folks, to our topics today, a couple of housekeeping notes real quick. Again, folks, tomorrow, I should say, begins March Madness. And again, folks, the network has launched our own March Madness Men's Basketball Tournament Challenge group. Again, log on to ESPN.com, search for the network name, Coast to Coast Entertainment Network, in the Men's Tournament Challenge directory, and use our password C2C2024. Fill out your bracket and play against your favorite network hosts and also against your fellow C2C fans as well. That, again, will get started tomorrow morning bright and early, so set those alarms to start watching and start losing your minds over college hoops. And also, folks, coming up in May, we will be having live coverage of the 2024 Backyard Brew Games Cornhole Tournament live from Eugene, Oregon, beginning at high noon Pacific time on May 4th. Join the entire cast and crew as we bring you some live cornhole from Eugene coming up in early May. So a couple of housekeeping notes right there for today's program. Again, folks, we'll take your live input here. Again, your questions, comments, or concerns, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent takes live in the chat box via Facebook, YouTube, or live via Twitch if you are joining us on the Twitch channel as well. With that, folks, into the big board of topics we go today. And of course, folks, we are starting off shop today with the global reach of Major League Baseball, which began the regular season just about roughly 13 hours ago now, up in Seoul, South Korea, as the LA Dodgers took on the San Diego Padres in the first ever game held by MLB in South Korea early Wednesday morning as the Dodgers won the game 5-2. But of course, folks, that is beyond the talking point here. Of course, the talking point here for the podcast today, as usual, again, is about baseball and the efforts of the World Tour, which is including stops this year for MLB in the DR, held earlier in March with the Red Sox and Rays playing a pair of spring training games in the DR, England in June, and also in Mexico later this season. Much like other leagues, though, Major League Baseball is focusing heavily on international play to expand their non-American audience, but there has been some criticism, though, for international gameplay, mainly for the fact, though, that the games in Seoul, South Korea for the Padres and Dodgers do count against the regular season standings. This led longtime and former Angel TV announcer and former Emily Network lead host Victor Rojas to take his commentary on Twitter this morning, calling the international opening day both dumb and unnecessary, where a fan actually agreed with Rojas, stating the fact that it was insane for the Dodgers and Padres, for that matter, to go back to spring training games after they come back home from Seoul, back to Southern California over the next week before the regular season does begin. That, folks, is why I'm cranky and a little grouchy, is this ongoing deliberation, I'd say, maybe the criticism, though, about why is Major League Baseball beginning to kind of follow the footsteps now of the NFL of scheduling regular season games in foreign markets. Now, I know the big pro of this, of course, is you're growing the game overseas. J.A. Adonde, folks, I think back in 2008, we were in the same exact boat, I think, folks, when the A's and Mariners first kind of kicked off this international tour of Major League Baseball of playing games overseas. The Mariners and A's spent like a week and a half, it felt like, in Tokyo and in Osaka, playing like the Padres and Dodgers. They would play each other in regular season games, but then they also had exhibition games mixed in against the other team, on top of playing some of the teams from the Japanese baseball pro leagues. And I think Christian Ilton, one of my great announcing colleagues, though, had a very great rant that I read early this morning when the game concluded. Is I'm not opposed, folks, to having games be played overseas. I think it is vastly important for us, for sports, any sport, to try to grow their portfolio and grow their sport. However, with baseball, I don't believe, though, that you have to really, I think, bring the game of baseball to countries like Japan and Korea, who already have the game established. I would think more about going to England, going to Italy, going to South Africa, going to maybe Saudi Arabia, because we've seen that going on recently. I would think I'm more in favor of going to non-traditional baseball market countries like Germany, Brazil, Argentina, more foreign markets like what the NFL is doing right now. But kind of in a way, growing the game of baseball in Japan and in Korea, to me, kind of makes absolutely no sense, because these are two established markets who have sent so many great legendary players into Major League Baseball. Again, Japan, Ohtani, Ichiro, Hideo Nomo, to name three. Korea, Ha-Seong Kim, notably Chan-Ho Park, throughout the first pitch, who has ties to both the Dodgers and Padre organizations with his playing career. I also think, though, that the ball was dropped by Major League Baseball to have Shohei Ohtani make his regular season debut overseas and not in Los Angeles or in San Diego. And I am totally on the side of Victor Rojas, again, former longtime Angel TV announcer and lead host of Emily Network. I actually saved Victor's tweet, folks, on X. I'm going to read it off here on air for you because I cannot get the full quote put into the on the big board today. But Victor's actual tweet reads at 9:49 a.m. Eastern time today, so 6:49 a.m. Pacific time. Victor Rojas on X, better known as Twitter, writes, "Call it what you want, but this opening day nonsense in a different part of the world while the other 28 teams are still in spring training is just dumb and unnecessary." This led to the last point here, Casey Wall on Twitter, who wrote back to Victor saying, "And having the Dodgers go back to spring training games afterwards is insane, LOL. That's the part to me that makes no sense. Is we are now going to play one more regular season game tomorrow at 3 a.m. again on the West Coast here, which I will not be waking up for to watch because I have to work at 12 noon Pacific time tomorrow for college baseball. So we're going overseas for the latter part of a week. We're having an expedited spring training for the second year in a row for both these teams because of the WBC last year. So we're going to spend a week and a half plus in Korea and play 4 games. 2 games for international goodwill with the Korean national team and one of the teams from the KBO. Then we're expected to go out in the middle of March and play 2 regular season games. Then once we come back home, get reacquainted with the time zone, play 2 or 3 more spring games with the arch rival Mariners or arch rival Angels, then get up and play regular season games again next Thursday. This is so ass backwards. Again, I have long believed, though, that you can do what the NHL did this past season and play these games, and these can be exhibitions. Why in the world do you want to have the regular season hinge on the fact that a ball goes through the glove webbing of Jake Cronenworth in Seoul, South Korea, the 3rd week of March, have any bearing on what the Padres might do in the regular season standings? Or say the Dodgers lose tomorrow morning on a walk-off slam, that both of these teams may have their season hinge on 2 games played overseas. And also, I noticed a trend, though, as well on Wednesday morning. The game, to me, felt extremely rushed because the pitch clock has been dialed back by 2 seconds, and the Padre pitchers had 4 pitch clock violations. I'm not calling those excuses as why my hometown club lost, because we have plenty of question marks that we can dive into on Sports Minute, for example, later tonight about why the Padres lost the game. But early in the game, though, I felt like the game was being rushed because of the clock being a little bit quicker. And Lance Barksdale had a hell of a time going out there, calling time and going to the watch and giving ball 4 out to Muncy and 3 other batters for the Dodgers. But to me, the game felt extremely rushed this morning because it kind of felt like get the ball and Glasnow's back on the rubber, throwing the next pitch. To me, it felt like there was no chance for the game to breathe because it kind of felt like we were going too much like this. The main point I want to bring up here about why I'm so cranky and grouchy about these games counting. Again, it might be, oh, he's a bitter Padre fan. I'm not a bitter Padre fan, folks. I'm not. It's not about being bitter. It is about the fact, though, about we're playing actual games overseas. I know the Padres did this last year in Mexico City, and the games were slugfests. Again, I'm all for promoting your league in overseas markets. But I can think, folks, of 3 factors right now. The main factor, again, is that the Dodgers roll out the red carpet for both Ohtani and Yamamoto over the offseason. $1.2 billion in spending. Yet the official first game, like that debut, first game, first hit, all that malarkey about Ohtani this morning, it happened in Korea. It didn't happen at Chavez Ravine or at America's #1 ballpark in San Diego. Like a little bit of the opening day tradition and pageantry was lost on Wednesday morning for the fact that these games are being played over in Korea. So that's main point 1, is that it feels like a botched opportunity to get the biggest, baddest brand name in the National League West in the LA Dodgers with their super team starting their season in South Korea and not starting their season in LA or in San Diego. That's the first thing. The second thing is Victor Rojas is so right. To again have 2 of your clubs go overseas in the middle of spring training, spend a week and a half roughly in this foreign country, in South Korea, and they play a total of 4 games in a week and a half span. I know a part of that, though, is because of traveling to get to Seoul, sightseeing, the media blitzes, and all that garbage. But 4 games, 2 exhibition or goodwill friendship games, then you play 2 regular season games. Opening up your season overseas is dumb and unnecessary. And I think, though, that Casey Wall, the fan who wrote back to Victor, is so right. Now we're going to be going back to games that don't mean a damn thing in the standings when these teams come back to play Seattle in San Diego or play the Angels in a 3-game set in LA and in Anaheim over the weekend or next Monday and Tuesday. But also, I wonder, though, and worry, though, about players getting injured. Because of how I felt that the game felt like it was rushed or sped up, because I know the clock was dialed back a couple of seconds for the pitch timer. But I mainly am concerned, though, about the health, though, maybe, of any pitcher who throws in these 2 games. Because you literally had to play these games like they counted, because they did count in the standings for some ungodly, stupid reason. I kind of wonder, though, about players who may not be at full game shape, kind of being forced to play a full 9 innings all of a sudden, when you would still be playing spring games, maybe ramping up your workload. You probably play 4, 5, 6 innings. You probably get 3 or 4 more at-bats, or 3 or 4 at-bats total. But now I wonder about pitchers like Glass now maybe kind of start feeling a little bit of some fatigue, or Darvish, or any of the guys who threw on Wednesday and then who may throw Thursday morning, that I think when you are a pitcher and you come in, though, to camp and you're probably in, and you're obviously in good shape, though, over the offseason when you kind of get yourself into the fold of kind of getting back into the mix of throwing every day. But I also think, though, that when we are going from spring training games where, again, pitchers are on extremely tight leashes, pitch counts, they may throw an inning, they get taken out to rest, and they come back in with the reentry rule for spring training. But when we go, though, this route of playing these games overseas, and we put value behind opening up the regular season in South Korea or in England or any foreign country, in the middle of March, when there are 28 other ball clubs still playing exhibition games, that begins to concern me about pitchers beginning to break down, because now we're forcing these teams to play regular season games this early in March. Now, I know that March opening day has been a thing for the past, I'd say, 4 to 5 years. I mean, I'm totally get that, and I kind of understand why, though, maybe, that we are playing games kind of early in March. I know that the weather may not be the best in the East Coast, the Midwest, or the Central. But, I mean, I understand that point, though. But I kind of think, though, even though teams know way in advance that, hey, you're going to be playing overseas to begin the regular season, it doesn't quite sit right with me as a former player who, again, may be easing my way back into playing shape from the offseason, whether it ended early after the regular season in the Padres case, or if you got swept by the Dodgers, by the Diamondbacks in the NLDS. I worry more about injuries becoming a factor when you kind of, in a way, force the hands of Dave Roberts and Mike Schilt, Andrew Friedman, and AJ Preller to put together a roster to play 2 regular season games, like literally playing these games like they matter, which they do for some reason, again, overseas. Then after 2 games, okay, you can relax, go back and playing your spring games. That's why I think Victor Rojas and Casey Wall, the fan who wrote back to Victor on Twitter, are so right. It's dumb and it's unnecessary to open up a regular season overseas. And I think the NFL is doing that as well, with, I believe, the Browns and Eagles opening up the year in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I think football might be a little bit easier to probably, I think, do, because it's 1 game a week and not multiple games. But I know you still have the travel factors. But again, folks, like I said, I am totally for leagues trying to expand their global reach and footprint. But I think, though, that Major League Baseball needs to cater more to England, South Africa, Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, maybe. More countries and markets who actually don't know the game very well. Now, I think it was great that they played those, that the Dodgers and D-backs played those games in Sydney, The best part, they were exhibition games. I know the Padres and Dodgers back in March of '08 played games over in China, in Beijing. And I believe those were also regular season games, and also they had exhibitions sprinkled in too. It's simple as this. If you are playing a game overseas, that game cannot count in the standings, in my opinion. This is not a bitter Padre fan who saw his team lose in such San Diego fashion with a ground ball going through the webbing of Jake Cronenworth's glove in the 8th inning on Wednesday morning. I view it more from a standpoint, though, of these need to be exhibition tours. I mean, if we're calling this a world tour, then these games cannot be counting in the standings. I think you would probably have to get all these games done in the middle of spring training, probably. Or you do something much like the NBA in-season tournament. Because let's keep in mind, too, folks, the Padres and Dodgers both lose one home game off the schedule because these two games just had to be played and just had to be regular season games over in South Korea's capital country of Seoul. What a disservice that is to fans who pay for a full season ticket package and they get screwed out of one home game. Yeah, it's one home game, but still, you're paying that much money for 81 games, not 80, not 79, not 78. You're paying for 81 home games, and you get gypped of one home game because for some damn reason, this league has to play a regular season game or games overseas. Again, I absolutely loved that the Sox and Rays played in the DR. You know why? Because they were spring training games. They didn't dub March 9th and 10th to be the first two games of the regular season. And then we have the tours going to England and to Mexico. And those games are regular season affairs. But again, Astro fan and Rocky fan, Philly and Met fan, they're losing a home game off their season ticket package. Yankee fan, Tiger fan, they're losing a home game or losing a game when they go to Williamsport for the Little League Classic because that game is only open to the Little League World Series participants. So Victor Rojas is right. An international opening day for Major League Baseball is dumb and unnecessary and plain stupid. Because I view it more for the fact that you cannot expect players to go through a sped up spring training process, let alone 2 years in a row. World Baseball Classic last year, and now this going on with Seoul, South Korea. Again, I thought it was great, though, that this happened. I'd rather, though, have these games be exhibitions. Again, this is not a bitter, salty Padre fan barking up that tree. Because, again, coming up after Thursday morning's game, the next games mean absolutely nothing. The Dodgers will play the Angels in 3 games, 2 in LA and 1 in Anaheim. Those are exhibitions. The Padres play their arch rivals from the American League West, the Seattle Mariners, for 2 games at Petco Park next Monday and Tuesday. They're exhibition games. So literally after this upcoming game on Thursday morning at 3 o'clock a.m., we have no meaningful baseball for the Padres and Dodgers for a full freaking week. And Padre and Dodger fans who bought season tickets have been gypped out of one home game to, I know, folks, grow the game internationally. But I think, though, it's a missed opportunity because the game is already thriving very well in Korea and thriving well over in Japan. That baseball has to reconfigure their next destinations. I'm all for England. I'm all for Mexico. I'm all for the DR. I'm all for international games, folks, for every league. But for God's sakes, you cannot have regular season games being played overseas. I would even say the same thing about the NHL playing over in Europe. I know what's going to happen next year when they have a couple teams go and play in Prague. I feel like that has to be a preseason ordeal. Now, it might be easier, folks, for like, say, the NBA to go overseas in the middle of the preseason or the NHL to do this. But I just think, though, that baseball, it's a very weird dynamic. But I think, though, that Victor Rojas is so right, though, that I view it again more so from the perspective that Shohei Ohtani's debut game, like regular season debut with the Dodgers, comes over in Seoul, South Korea. And Dodger fans have to wake up, like Padre fans, or both fan bases both have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch their two teams or their teams play a regular season game in the middle of March at 3 o'clock in the morning. Again, I'm borderline grouchy and cranky because I did get up with my folks to watch the game. But I think, though, it's also what we have talked about here, though, is that regular seasons cannot be hinging on games being played overseas. If this was maybe in the middle of the season, I'd have no problem with it. But not, though, in the middle of spring training where, again, you are expediting teams who could have players getting hurt by forcing their hand already. I know that did not happen mercifully, and I hope it does not happen on Thursday morning. But I think, though, when players are trying to get back into shape here in the middle of the spring, and then you tell them, nope, now we have 2 regular season games. Now you're forcing Dave Roberts and Mike Schilt. I know that Roberts does not have anywhere near the problems that the Padres have, but you're forcing managers, though, now to kind of, in a way, snap quickly into regular season mode for 2 days. Then the foot gets taken off the gas pedal. You know, if somebody over in this series gets injured, I think there should be a lot of blame thrown the way of Major League Baseball for putting these international games, though, in the middle of spring training. And I would say the same damn thing about the WBC with how Edwin Diaz got hurt last year and basically killed the Mets season last year. Again, folks, I am totally for every league out there expanding their global footprint. But I just don't think, though, that you can be having regular season games being played in foreign countries that actually holds weight for the regular season. Again, it may not be a fair point to blame the ball going through Cronenworth's glove webbing on the fact that the game was played in Korea. I mean, that was just a very freak thing that happened. But say a pitcher, though, blows out their arm, though, throwing 8 innings of shutout baseball, and then he has to have Tommy John because for some ungodly, stupid, ass-backwards reason that they have to have regular season games be played in the middle of March. That's the bigger issue I have here. And I hope it doesn't happen. As much as I am a Padre fan and I do not like the Dodgers, I don't want either team to be having any problems or anyone getting hurt because the league just happened to force their hand by playing 2 regular season games where those fan bases, again, lose a home game off of their season ticket package. That's more of, I think, my reason for being upset and cranky and grouchy on this Wednesday afternoon that I've been up for practically almost 13 hours today and still recovering from being sick. But I think it's only fair, though, that if you do go overseas, the game does not count in the standings, or you make a concession where whoever you play against, you play them in a doubleheader and you add like 2 games to the season schedule. You know, that may sound stupid or a bunch of malarkey in your mind, though. But again, you're screwing fan bases out of having their full season ticket packages. And again, though, I think more about my friend Christian Ilton, who had a great, very passionate rant, though, on his Facebook timeline today. How in the world, though, can Major League Baseball let the biggest name in the sport make his new team debut overseas in South Korea, and the fans of that franchise and the LA Dodgers have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning on a work day or a school day to watch their new 10-year, $700 million man make his Dodger Blue debut. Or in my case, you're tuning in to watch how your hometown Padres do, knowing that they don't stand a chance to beat the Dodgers whatsoever. But you still watch, though, because you love your team, though, and then you want to see how Jackson Merrill played in center field. And seeing how the guys look, though, with them losing Soto and all the kids that they got from the Yankees. I'd even wake up if I would have woken up to if it was an exhibition game. I just think it is not fair. Again, not the salty Padre fan barking up a tree here. Again, I think it is just unfair for those Dodger friends of mine who maybe have season seats, who again kind of felt like that the Ohtani Dodger debut kind of got spoiled because this happened over in South Korea. But again, folks, give me your thoughts here again. I've been going on this tangent for 30 minutes already. But again, folks, Dodgers, Padres playing the first 2 regular season games ever in Seoul, South Korea, a part of this year's MLB World Tour. That includes stops right now in both the DR that happened already, also in England and in Mexico this season, with the league focusing more and more on international gameplay to expand its non-American audience. But there has been some criticism, though, mainly for the fact, though, that the Padre-Dodger series does count in the standings for both LA and San Diego, with former longtime baseball announcer Victor Rojas calling the international opening day both dumb and unnecessary. And a fan, Casey Wall on Twitter, agreed with Victor, saying that it was insane that the Dodgers, and for that matter, the Padres, are both going to be going back to spring games following the conclusion of this series in Seoul, South Korea. Couple of thoughts real quick from my good man, Sean Mears, who says, Cal, great points made. I am not also a fan of overseas games. Sean, I agree. Again, though, man, let me say it again. I am totally, my man, in favor of a league like Major League Baseball growing their brand name. I just think, though, from a logistical standpoint, Sean, go to England, go to South Africa, go to Saudi Arabia, go to Brazil, go to Argentina, go to non-baseball knowing markets. Korea already has a pro league. Japan has a pro league. Mexico has a pro league. The DR has a pro league. Like, you need to start looking outside the box and going to markets like England, for example, who live and die with football. And I mean soccer, the right version of football. Come at me if you want to. But like London, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, South Africa. Think of markets like that for international growth. Not Korea, not Japan, not Mexico, not the DR. Simple as that. Now, that's just the way I view it, Sean, because, you know, a lot of people maybe know about baseball in those certain markets. For example, when I got to play overseas, Sean, in Italy in 2009 on a global stage like what baseball is doing with this tour, we had to play a tournament in a very small town about half an hour south of Rome called Nettuno. Nettuno is the city in Italy where the American troops during World War II and D-Day brought the sport of baseball. Nettuno is basically the baseball capital of Italy, and a great friend of mine, Chris Leonosi, played over in the Italian Pro Baseball League in Nettuno, and in the southern part of the country. That would be a place, Sean, for baseball to go play a game. London's already one thing. I feel the same way, though, about them going to London. You know, go to Germany. I mean, look at what the NFL has done. Again, I do not like American football or the NFL whatsoever, minus FCS college football. But they, though, have done it right, though, of going to places like Notre Dame football, for example, playing in Dublin, Ireland. They've gone to Mexico. They're going to Brazil. They've gone to Germany. They've gone to so many different places that baseball should be looking at that blueprint and saying, okay, what sport or what countries don't know much about the game of baseball? Like for example, when they took the Red Sox and Yankees over to London, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Because you took probably baseball's best rivalry and put it on that global stage over in the UK. Now, I know they played at a cricket stadium and that the ball was flying out of the ballpark every other pitch. Who cares? They loved it over in London. This year you have the Mets and Phillies, another great rivalry going overseas. Now, before I move on here, I will say I do appreciate the fact, though, that Major League Baseball has kind of looked out, though, for the players and the teams, though, when they do pick who goes and plays, for example, in London or in Korea this year. You took two West Coast teams and put them out and sent them out to Korea. You're going to put two East Coast teams back in London, and are sending two Midwest and centralized teams in the Astros and the Rockies to Mexico to play in Mexico. That part is perfect because I don't know if you want to be sending West Coast teams all the way out to England, for example. Now, what would I do with South Africa, for example, or some, country like Germany, for example? I would think you would still probably want to keep like the rivalries. Like, for example, maybe you would take the Giants and Dodgers, for example, and let them play in Germany, for example, or in Korea again, for all that I know, for the fact of them having Jung-Hoo Lee playing in San Francisco. I would like to see more of that, though, like regionalized international play. West Coast teams go to Japan, Korea, maybe to South Africa, down to Australia. I'd love to see that happen again. And then East Coast teams go, for example, to London or go to Germany, go to Dublin, for example. I'd love to see more of that. There'll be a thing going forward. Well, stay folks in baseball. And our next topic here is about unrest in the Players Association with the MLB Players Association. We broke the story, folks, on Monday night here on C2C at night. But the Players Association is now facing internal strife and issues as the players are calling for the dismissal of Deputy Director Bruce Meyer in favor of lawyer Harry Marino per a late night report on Monday night. With right now, currently, players have accused Meyer of being too tied in to super agent Scott Boras. Mainly on the financial, and again, folks, we talked about this a little bit on Monday night here on Coast to Coast at night. But main reason being here for the fact spending on players this offseason is down by nearly and roughly approximately $1 billion compared to last season's record spending season. This decrease is influenced, though, by the significant contracts of both Shohei Ohtani and right-hand pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who both signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. But also other teams have scaled back their pay and spending due to uncertainty surrounding the ongoing Diamond Sports Group bankruptcy and local TV ratings. The situation right now in the MLBPA and the financial landscape of the league are marked by tension and ongoing challenges. Folks, if you missed out on C2C at night on Monday, James and I talked about this because this was a very late developing story on Monday night when we came on the air about this lengthy hours-long meeting concerning the Players Association and the players' reps who all kind of in a way have gotten together and said, we want this guy out of here. Which has led James and I to both believe that we are right now kind of in a way beginning to sound the alarm and calling Scotland Yard on another potential MLB lockout. Because of what is written here in bullet point 5. Teams have scaled back their pay, and also the fact of there being a $1 billion decrease in spending. Though again, Dodgers spending $1.2 billion combined on Yamamoto and Ohtani, and then trading for Glasnow and also signing Teoscar Hernandez. But it sounds like that this could be a MLB Watergate moment because of what is being perhaps dubbed collusion between Bruce Meyer and Scott Boras. Again, folks, this is easily, again, by far the most anticlimactic, lackluster baseball offseason. Again, this may be that salty Padre fan view of seeing the Dodgers getting Ohtani and Yamamoto and Glasnow. Again, folks, it is not from that perspective. I think we have to view this, folks, from the entire scope of things right now. Now, I will say, though, that I would agree that the TV issues right now are still a major, major talking point right now in Major League Baseball, sadly, at this rate. Again, the Padres are $60 million out of their TV deal again, as are the Diamondbacks, and the Rockies are also out of their RSN. And also that the Padres, sadly, are, and again, they had to deal with the loss of their owner, Peter Seidler. By the way, props to MLB for the moment of silence in honor of Peter's memory yesterday, or this morning, I should say. And that void is still being felt here in San Diego. Peter's passing, the trade made by of Juan Soto to the Yankees, the payroll being slashed by nearly $100 million. But now, folks, if you're a baseball fan, this just makes this offseason that much more worse, or it makes it worse than what it was. Because Blake Snell waited so damn long to sign, and he finally did with San Francisco. But he still, though, have J.D. Martinez and Jordan Montgomery still out there unsigned. We're 8 days away from the regular season officially starting. Don't give me this crap about these 2 games in Korea. But even with the CBA intact for 2 more years, now that this news has come out as a Monday night, if you're a baseball fan, you are terrified right now. That here we go again, on our own, down the only road we've ever known. And that is work stoppage looming again in Major League Baseball. Other than the Dodgers, where's the excitement been from this offseason? If you're a Dodger fan, of course, you're going nuts. But again, you also have in the back of your mind, this is great and all until we lose in the first round of the playoffs like we usually do. Again, not saying that as a bitter Padre fan, just pointing out facts. Truth hurts, doesn't it? But now, though, folks, that we have somewhat in a way reverted back to the 2022 season. Players Association is not happy with how things have gone. And now we have probably reached baseball's Watergate moment. Potential collusion between Bruce Meyer and Scott Boras. Is there something going on behind closed doors or on that secure telephone line between Boras and Meyer? Who knows? But I think it does, though, raise concern if you're a baseball fan that, oh no, here we go again. And I think, though, that James is right on Monday night when we were on here on C2C at night. That I would not be surprised, though, that the players just walk away next season, though there be a year left on that deal for the CBA. But also, I don't even blame the owners. James's point as well earlier in the offseason, owners may have gotten smarter with their money. But again, maybe it's tied in, though, to the uncertainty with television right now with Diamond Sports and Bally. Or in the Padres case, you're mourning your owner passing away. But can baseball afford again to have another labor stoppage or a lockout happen again for the second time in a very short span of time? I don't think so. And if they do, they're going to lose more fans. And this sport will continue to be the absolute class clown and laughing stock of North American professional sports. And folks, I absolutely dread saying that as a lifelong baseball fan and former player. But Major League Baseball just cannot get out of their own way. They find ways to balk at the worst possible times and bring in the game-tying run or game-winning run from third base when they balk at something stupid. Again, I don't know, though, if the Ohtani contract, the deferred money, becomes a talking point. But if the Players Association folks if they're facing these kind of problems right now, and from what James and I reported on from Jeff Passan and from ESPN.com on Monday night, of there being a 6-hour-long Zoom meeting, there's a ongoing text message thread between the player reps about that they want Bruce Meyer out and Harry Marino in. Because, again, Marino was very instrumental in the deal for the minor leagues and major leagues to finally, come together finally. I would be very nervous, very terrified, very concerned, and very, very scared as a baseball fan that we may not be reaching 2026 without there being some stoppage pretty soon. Because I would think right now that this feels like a Watergate moment for baseball, if, in fact, it's true right now that Bruce Meyer is being accused right now by his players of being too tied in with Scott Boras. And honestly, I think that it's a very valid point. Because look at how long that this has dragged out, though, folks, if you're a baseball fan. The process of the Boras clients signing so late into camp, in Snell's case, signing on Monday, literally 11 days from the season starting. The fact that JD Martinez, a power-hitting DH, is still out there. The fact that Jordan Montgomery, unsung pitcher turned World Series hero, is still unsigned. And we're 8 days away from opening day. There has to be something going on behind closed doors between Meyer and Boras. Again, I think James is right, though, and spot on that the owners may have gotten smarter about their money. But I also think, though, that it's aided, sadly, by the fact of they don't know about their TV future on Bally Sports or the RSNs. Or, again, here locally with my Padres, your owner passed away in November. And they're kind of resetting the entire checkbook right now with how things stand with the payroll. Again, I'm very weary now that you almost have to, in a way, appreciate all the games this year, maybe minus these 2 regular season games in Korea for the millionth time on this podcast. Because it's almost like you want to go like this, great, here we go again, if you're a baseball fan. And then baseball wonders why people out there detract away from the game and they laugh and point at this league. Because this league seems to always be stuck in some controversy. And it's always he said, she said, they said, we said, you said, yada, yada, yada. And then the league realizes why that they're a laughingstock and why they're the class clown of North American pro sports and why they're so far behind the NFL and so far behind the NBA. And even so far behind the NHL and Major League Soccer. Tough times right now, folks, facing baseball if you're not a fan of the Dodgers at this rate. Again, I even reported on here back in February that 19 of the 30 clubs reduced their payrolls in some fashion. Again, TV may be a factor. Ownership changes or an owner passing away may be a factor. But again, though, for a whole $1 billion difference in a year of an offseason, that is kind of concerning. And then again, Scott Boras just has 2 clients out here still unsigned, 8 days away from the season starting. And again, folks, I know that I hate the NFL and hate American football. Yet, though, they've had 170-plus players sign new contracts in 6 days. And baseball still has 2 big-name free agents on the waiver wire unsigned. And they are 8 days away from the season actually starting. Again, don't give me this crap about the games in Korea. The NFL in March is more relevant than baseball starting in 8 days. How embarrassing is that for the so-called pastime of America? That the NFL has over 170 players signing contracts in free agency, and baseball's free agents are still unsigned 8 days away from the season starting. And I believe, folks, that James Gonzalez is probably going to be right when it's all said and done, that there's going to be a labor stoppage. I think because of bullet points 2 and 3. Meyer being accused of being too tight in or too in deep with Scott Boras. Spending has been cut by $1 billion in some rough estimation compared to last year's record-setting spending spree. Again, I know, though, sadly, that there's a couple of factors out there that are not in the control of the teams. When it boils down to television money, and in the Padres case, you can't really predict for your owner passing away. But again, it is just such a letdown for Major League Baseball that this has been by far and in a way easily, in my opinion, the absolute worst offseason between the lack of signings, the uniform problems, regular season games in Korea meaning something in mid-March, for God's sakes. This is an absolute train wreck. That you don't know, if you're a baseball fan, whether to laugh or cry, because it's just that comical watching this league, repeat the same stuff over and over again. Like, isn't the definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over and over and over again? That is literally how it feels right now if you're a baseball fan. Unless you're a fan of the Dodgers, and again, you got Ohtani and Yamamoto for $1.2 billion. Okay, plenty of thoughts here real quick about this. Sean Mears writes in real quick that the TV money is getting out of hand these days. My man, Big Baby John Sofel writes in, great show. Good to see you as well, my man, and great stuff covering the Lakers on your platforms. And James Gonzalez does write in, owners and players better figure it out, or even during the season to get parameters set. Got to be something done, James. And James, you've been so vocal about that, and I agree with you so much that you almost want to just hug and not let go of the baseball regular season because you just don't know what may happen over the offseason. James, and again, James, just think, though. Think about what happened 30 years ago. Not the fact I was born 30 years ago in May. But we're coming up, though, on the 30th anniversary of the great strike of 94 that prohibited the late, great Tony Gwynn from probably hitting 400. And at the very bottom of the barrel in 94 was Callan McClurg being born. But if you're a baseball fan, though, now you're wondering about what happened 30 years ago and what may happen now, 30 years later. So, James, what do you think happens here if they go on strike in the middle of the year again like they did 30 years ago? I think you'd still be right, though, about the future for the game beyond 2024. With that in mind, folks, we will segue over to the ranks of college athletics, and the worldwide leader cashes in on the CFP for a brand new media rights deal that will take ESPN, or will have ESPN as the media rights holder for the college football playoff all the way through the 2031-2032 season for an estimated $7.8 billion deal. Fox Sports had the chance and sought to challenge ESPN's control over the CFP, but ESPN's deep pockets and ABC's wide reach secured the hold over Fox Sports. As the field expands to beyond 12 teams, ESPN will be exclusively covering the new first-round games, New Year's quarterfinals, semifinals, and the national title game on ESPN and also on ABC. And ESPN can also sub-license a select number of games, likely the least watched first-round games. With ESPN also employing a similar strategy to potentially get the Super Bowl by the year 2031 and 2036. Are we at all, folks, surprised about ESPN maintaining college football on their portfolio? I'm not. I also think, though, that them cashing in, though, was a foregone conclusion. I know Fox tried, but I don't think, though, that Fox really had standing ground because they're on shaky ground, though, because FS1 has just, like we said, though, on here a couple times, gone down the drain. But now I also think, though, folks, that I think the cool part about this, though, is that Now I think that every playoff game now will have some sort of big coverage now, whether it's ESPN Plus, whether it's MegaCast for all the games. I mainly think, though, that this was a foregone conclusion by far and away when it comes to ESPN maintaining the hold of the CFP. Now, what's going to happen when they go to 14 teams in a couple of years? You know? That's more of the concern I think I would have had, though, or have, is if this format keeps growing and growing and growing beyond 12 teams. And I mainly think that the CFP went the route of ESPN because ESPN has more at their disposal. They have ABC, they have ESPN Plus, they have ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, and the SEC network and the ACC network and all these other networks out there, where Fox really, I don't think, had enough pull to win over the committee and win over the entire product. I also, folks, view it, though, from the entire branding standpoint. Historically, my family and I usually had gone to Disneyland in Anaheim around the Rose Bowl game week. And part of the teams coming out to Pasadena, both teams get a day at the parks. There were several years in a row that we were there and the teams from the Rose Bowl game would be at the park. There was a year my dad and I rode the roller coaster in California Adventure with the entire offensive line from Penn State. There was a year that we saw Jameis Winston in Florida State at the ESPN Zone in downtown Disney. I think that it's not just the television side of it. I also think that it's also about ESPN having the crossover with the Disney company. That you can now send the teams, for example, if they play in the Orange Bowl, to have their day at Disney World in Florida or Disneyland in California during the Rose Bowl week. That I believe, folks, that the deal is much more than just the TV rights. I think it's also about sending those teams off to the Disney parks in California and Florida, for example, again, the Rose Bowl and Orange Bowl. I think it's also with studio coverage, too, in L.A., with ESPN having a headquarters by Crypto.com Arena. So, again, I'm not surprised. I do think that Fox, or at least giving it a shot, was good. But, again, at the end of the day, I always felt like it was going to be ESPN. So, again, folks, a $7.8 billion deal reached today by ESPN to continue being the main home exclusively for the college football playoff that will run now through the 2031-32 season for nearly $8 billion. Again, the new format in place as well, the 12-team format coming forward. ESPN will have rights exclusively to broadcast the new first-round games, the quarterfinals, semis, and the national title game, which, again, also I think gives them an advantage, though, because now you can also, because I think as well, though, of where we just talked about, folks, in the baseball segment, because of where we're at right now with regional sports networks and with ESPN, having ABC, which I know is a station that everybody gets in their household, being able to have games on ABC will also help, though, too. Not just with the fact of like ESPN Plus or ESPN in general, but having ABC, which I know is built into everyone's television, your Fox affiliate, your NBC affiliate, your CBS affiliate, and your ABC affiliate, that also, I think, was kind of like a next rung of the ladder up that gave ESPN the advantage over Fox. But also, like I said, though, maybe, again, the outreach, again, of sending the teams to Disneyland in Anaheim or Disney World in Florida. Definitely, I think, though, does help ESPN. James does write about the strike. He says, Cal, I do not think that there'll be a strike during the season this year, but in the offseason, there better be some good conversations going on with the TV or streaming platforms. That's the big selling point, I think. James also asks, so Callan, with this new deal for college football for ESPN, what are the chances that that ESPN loses the NBA after this season? Ooh, good question, James. I would wonder, though, about that reported streaming platform deal, James, that we kind of talked about a little bit here, that had discussed about the potential opportunity of ESPN, Fox, and I think Turner and Bleacher Report and Max, I think, merging into one streaming platform where everyone will get a cut of the pie to stream the NBA. Even despite the fact, James, that that college football now has this multi-billion-dollar, multi-year deal with ESPN, I don't think that the NBA is going to lose ESPN. Though I know Fox is still out there and that maybe NBC comes back after all these years. Again, I just kind of feel like, though, the fact that ESPN has the capabilities again, with ESPN Plus, ESPN, again, all their platforms, though I know that Fox has their platform and NBC has Peacock and USA. I also, James, believe I read a story a while back saying that Fox was not going to bid on the NBA because they didn't want to compete with ESPN. So even though that there's this new deal, James, for the CFP, I think ESPN's fine. I do. I don't see anyone else really trying to put a bid in for the rights for the college football playoff, or for that matter, for the NBA in general, I should say. Next up, folks, let's talk about some of the underdog teams in March Madness on the men's side. In recent tournaments, there have been two 16 seeds who finally achieved historic victories over their respective top number one seeds. UMBC beat Virginia in 2018, and of course, FDU knocked off Purdue just last season. This year, the underdog lineup features Stetson University, a first-timer to this year's tournament, with a modest $2.1 million basketball budget. The St. Peter's Peacocks are back after they busted brackets 2 years ago. Is back as a 15 seed team after an impressive Elite Eight run and the departure of the team's head coach. Long Beach State, a 15 seed as well, won the Big West tournament despite uncertainty in the head coach with their head coach getting fired, but was still able to coach the team until the season came to a close. Colgate makes their seventh appearance in the tournament and will face Baylor at the 19,000-seat FedEx Forum in Memphis, Tennessee, which compares in contrast to their home arena, which holds only 1,750 fans and is the smallest home arena of any team in the tournament. And 13 seeds Charleston, Vermont, and Yale, with smaller campuses and, for that matter, smaller class sizes, have also made multiple appearances in the tournament and secured other upset victories. This, folks, is what we live for in March Madness. And again, why I will always believe that March Madness is the best time of the year, but also the best college postseason other than college baseball and maybe college softball. Because schools like these get in. The CFP never can crack it and will never top March Madness or top college baseball or college softball when it comes to the postseason. Because of stories like this. Again, it never had happened until recently where we saw Farley Dickinson and then we saw UMBC topple the number one seed as a 16 seed. Stetson is a 16 seed playing UConn. And they roll on a shoestring budget of $2 million. The Peacocks of St. Peter's went all the way to the Elite Eight 2 years ago. They play Tennessee this year in round one. Long Beach State literally fired their head coach on Monday last week and said that we are going to move on from our head coach when the year concludes. That team rallies around the fired head coach and wins the conference tournament and gets in as a 15 seed to play 2 seed U of A. Colgate gets in for the seventh time in their history. They're going to play in an arena with about 17,000 plus more seats in their home arena on campus. Charleston, Vermont, and Yale have much smaller student bodies and have been known for upsets. Vermont, again, knocked out Syracuse many years ago. Yale has had some great victories in their time, as has Charleston. These are the teams that we will be rooting for. Now, I'm not going to be rooting for my bracket to get busted after day one. But part of me loves to see schools like this who have these storylines behind them. Again, they may or may not win the game, folks. But at the end of the day, this is why March Madness to me is so much better than the CFP. Because so many great stories like this get rewarded. Not excluded, because you have to get Michigan in when their coach was suspended for 3 games during the course of the football season. Or you have to get 2 or 3 SEC schools into the tournament. You can have teams make their first ever trip. Ever. Or first ever trip in 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. Again, Stetson's a newcomer this year. And they roll with a $2.1 billion or $1 million budget. They're going to play UConn. The defending national champions, who probably have a budget size of probably, I'd say, $20 million. Too many B's with the billions in the last baseball segment. St. Peter's, Elite 8 run. Long Beach State canning their head coach. Wins the conference tournament with him still coaching the team. Colgate plays in an arena that holds 1,700 people and plus. Charleston, Vermont, and Yale have smaller campus sizes than maybe any other big-name university. Think back to last year's Final Four, folks. There were 2 established big-name, national-known schools playing last year in the tournament Final Four. Connecticut, who won the damn thing, and Miami, Florida. Then you had Florida Atlantic University and San Diego State University in the Final Four. Then you had San Diego State make the final game and lose to UConn. Did you imagine that happening in college football? Absolutely not. Because neither of those schools are brand names in college football. But again, March Madness lets in those lesser-known schools from lesser-known conferences that everyone just kind of looks at and didn't just kind of screw them, you know? Now, again, I don't think that either school is going to be capable of an upset. But because I work in a small conference like the WCC, who got 2 schools in, yeah, I'll be rooting for St. Mary's and Gonzaga to go deep, because that means more money for my conference. I'll be rooting for St. Peter's and LBSU and Colgate and Vermont and Charleston and Yale to keep it close, maybe win the game. I'd be willing to be like Thanos and sacrifice half of humanity. I'd be willing to sacrifice my bracket for a lesser-known school who's in the big dance, going on that Cinderella run as an underdog. Because, again, unlike the CFP, that's what sells March Madness. That's what makes March Madness the best. Now, maybe, yeah, well, it's because everybody gets in, dude. I'm aware of that. But again, I believe that the CFP has not worked to its full potential. Even at 12, I don't think it's going to be working at its full potential. College basketball letting in 68 schools, that works. I was thoroughly invested watching Wagner playing Howard yesterday. I had my hands on my head and I was yelling at the television when Howard didn't call timeout down by 3 to draw up a better play on the final possession. They came up empty on all 3 of their game-tying three-pointer attempts. I question why Virginia got into the field, and they got absolutely spanked by Colorado State last night. I will probably lose my shit today when I watch the next first 4 games. Because that's what makes March Madness special. The CFP is not special. because it only caters to the rich. March Madness caters to everybody. Rich, middle class, poor. They cater to everybody. Were there snubs? When is there never snubs in college basketball? That's why you have the NIT. That's why you have the pay-for-play CBI tournaments. So, yeah, I'd be willing to sacrifice my bracket in the C2C ESPN.com challenge group to have a Stetson upset my pick to win the title in UConn, or St. Peter's to knock out Tennessee, or Long Beach to beat U of A, or Colgate to beat Baylor, Charleston to beat Bama, Vermont to beat their opponent, or Yale to beat their opponent. Because I'm in the same boat as a basketball announcer in the West Coast Conference, much like these other schools are. I know there's some of you out there who are wondering, Big West Conference, West Coast Conference, Conference USA. This wouldn't sell in the CFP. That's why the CFP hasn't worked. That's why I've long believed that it hasn't and will never work properly. That's why March Madness is the king of the college sports season, other than the college baseball and college softball postseasons. Don't give me this malarkey about the CFP being special. Yeah, you had, 2 instances of a lesser-known school getting into the title game? TCU and maybe last year with Washington? Give me a break. Give me a break. I just have to think back to this past year that, again, I had my thoughts that Michigan should have been DQ'd because Harbaugh had all the sanctions on him and the suspensions because of the entire COVID recruiting issues and the sign stealing. Or the fact that I thought that Florida State and Georgia should have gotten in. Then, of course, Florida State reversed course and became a bunch of sore losers and babies with how they played in the Orange Bowl. There's nothing special about the CFP, folks. Every year, though, you can count on there being something special about March Madness. As I think about what SDSU did last year, again, I work at one of the rival universities of San Diego State. Yet, I was behind them the whole entire way, though I knew they were going to lose to UConn, which was fine by me because I had a win regardless, because UConn is where I saw my first ever basketball game in any capacity. I have family from Hartford and an aunt who went to UConn and is an alum of UConn. But you have to think about, though, what it does, though, when a program like San Diego State University from the Mountain West Conference goes all the way and it rallies the whole damn city around the program. That's why the hashtag San Diego versus everybody became a thing for me, even working at the rival University of San Diego State, working at the University of San Diego. Because it rallied and brought the whole entire 8th largest city in America by population together. Just like the Padres beating the Dodgers in 2022 in the postseason. That was a rallying cry for this city and this county, in this town. Just think, though, what it would mean, though, to a school like Long Beach State, for example. Canning their head coach and winning the conference tournament and getting into the Field of 68. What would that mean, though, maybe for that coach who got fired to go on a bit of a run, upset U of A, go like 2, 3, 4 rounds deep? What would that mean for Long Beach, California? Yeah, it's Snoop Dogg's hometown, but that would put the beach back on everyone's radar. What if St. Peter's does it again? What would that mean for their hometown and their campus community? What if the Hatters somehow upset UConn and ruin everyone's bracket? What would that mean for that town in Florida? Again, you have to think outside the box, folks. College athletics is not always about the blue blood programs. That's why I have long said that the CFP will never work to its full potential, and why I will always say and take to my grave that March Madness is the ultimate king and queen of how you get teams into a postseason for college athletics. Plenty of thoughts there real quick. James is saying that Grambling State, their first ever appearance, trying to hang in with Montana State right now. James, I'm rooting for Montana State because the former men's basketball head coach at Point Loma Nazarene University, Matt Logie, his lead assistant, Julius Smith, and Brian Goracki, a player, are all at Montana State. So I'm rooting for my boys from Point Loma to do well with Montana State. James also points out with the Rams beating the Cavs last night, only further shows how strong the Mountain West Conference is. Again, James, we talked about that though when we picked the bracket on Monday for our show. The Mountain West beat the crap out of each other the entire year. And look what the Mountain West did to the ACC. Utterly embarrassing Virginia. That right there should speak volumes about where and why March Madness is better than the CFP. James also says, cannot wait for Samford to upset some teams. And then he says, throw in GCU growing as a program for sure, James. And again, we talked about that kind of at length when we were talking about their matchup against St. Mary's on the show on Monday. Is that's been built from square one, James, by far and away. Again, brick by brick, it's been growing and growing and growing and growing. And every game, James, down there is sold out. I mean, it is electric seeing the Lopes play in Phoenix at GCU. And again, it just means that much more to those small programs. Again, proving again, once more, why March Madness is a million times better than college football in their playoff system. Come at me if you want to. I don't care. Last but not least, folks, on today's program, with the Olympic Games coming up in July, NBC is back as the home, I should say, for the Olympic Games, and are bringing back their whip-around show called Gold Zone, back on Peacock this year, hosted by some big names: Andrew Siciliano, Scott Hansen, Matt Eisman, and Akbar Gaba Molina will be hosting this program from 4 a.m. till 2 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time daily during the Olympic Games. Of course, Scott Hansen, best known for his coverage of hosting Red Zone on NFL Network, will lead the coverage, while Siciliano, Eisman, and Akbar will close out each day. The decision also aligns with NBC's strategy of streaming all Olympic events on live on Peacock and on NBC, following a precedent sent back in 2022, with the Olympic Games kicking off in late July in Paris, with Gold Zone beginning to air on July 27th from Paris, France. This also, folks, comes on the heels, too, of Mike Tirico, Peyton Manning, and Kelly Clarkson being the three in-studio hosts for the Olympic Games coverage, too, on NBC. I'll tell you this much, folks. This might be the time that I think that streaming platforms actually will help out an event. Because I know a lot of you out there grew up, though, in the Stone Ages. I hate to say that, though, but of the age, though, of when every event was tape delayed and not shown, live on air. But now that we have these platforms at our disposal, with NBC and Peacock now at our disposal, now I think it's becoming more and more easier, I think, to actually watch an event like the Olympic Games live in real time. And I think, though, that it's also good, though, that NBC will be utilizing Peacock to their full potential. Because I do think, though, that you want to have as much Team USA on cable, but you also want to cater, though, to the audience, too, on Peacock. Now, folks, way back when we talked about the Dolphins and Chiefs game being only on Peacock, I kind of wondered aloud out here about, would this hurt businesses? Would this hurt, the ratings? And I even said, though, would it be so hard to take the Peacock broadcast off, have it on Peacock, but have like an alternate telecast for people who don't want to buy the platform on NBC? Part of me does wonder, though, does that become a factor now in Paris in a couple of months? If there's an event on Peacock with Simone Biles, for example, and people are gymnastic fans, are they going to fork out the money to watch the event on Peacock if it's a one-time event and then get rid of it when the Olympic Games are over? I still believe, though, that he could do this, that he could easily take the Peacock telecast and put it on on cable NBC and cater to both of your audiences, both on cable and on streaming platforms. But I also, folks, love that love this format idea here. Much like Red Zone with Scott Hansen, again, he's going to be hosting this event along with Andrew Siciliano and the two other hosts, though. Because James is right. There is so much going on. So many events are going on at one given time. You want to see everything kind of in real time, but also maybe catch the tail end of maybe a track and field race with Sha'Carri Richardson, for example. You kind of want to see like USA, Jamaica, and women's track and field, for example. Or you want to see Team USA basketball on the women's side play against Australia or France. So I do love this idea. But also, again, I think it's also good, though, because you can also expose the American TV viewership to non-traditional sports that you would watch. Track and field, taekwondo, table tennis, marathon walking, mountain bike racing, rowing, equestrian. A lot of the off-the-wall sports that NBC does have on their like Saturday or Sunday morning program slates in the football off-season or the college off-seasons. And also, I think that you want to be able to have Team USA on at all costs, whatever sport it is, too. And I think this is a great step forward, though, that NBC is going to be having this program back in 2024. And I also look forward to the Olympic Games, folks, every time that they roll around. I mainly say that because I love seeing other events take place. Again, for example, like I said, like Team USA in equestrian or boxing, taekwondo, judo, fencing, equestrian, sailing, surfing, rowing, 3-on-3 hoops, you name it. And also, again, having Scott Hansen, the master of the Whip Around show, hosting, along with Siciliano, Matt, and Akbar, perfect. So again, folks, once more, NBC is going to bring back Gold Zone, their Whip Around show for the Olympic Games coming up in July, led by two big names of Andrew Siciliano and Scott Hansen. And also, again, more events will be live on Peacock. Again, though, I would still like to see, though, a concession made or a bone thrown the way of TV viewers. Though, again, I love the fact that a lot of these are going to be on Peacock. I do, though, still want events on NBC on cable. I know it's easy, folks, nowadays to dual screen or split screen things, like, have one event on the computer, one event on the laptop, one event on the phone, one event on the iPad or on the TV. Again, that's going to be me tomorrow, watching games on my phone while I'm at work tomorrow. But certainly, again, I think that there has to be a concession or a bone thrown the way of TV viewers. Again, you can easily take the Peacock broadcasts and put them on cable on Channel 7 here in San Diego or on your NBC affiliate. Because, again, I do feel like it is a bit of a disservice if you are only catering to your streaming audience. I know that we're kind of going that way right now with cord cutting and cable cutting. But for those, though, who probably don't want to fork out the money to watch the Olympic Games, though, put them, you have to have those events as well on cable TV. But again, folks, once more, Gold Zone, the Whip Around Show, is going to be coming back for the Olympic Games in Paris in 2024, led by host Andrew Siciliano, Scott Hansen, Matt Eisman, I should say, and Akbar Jamalia. The show will run from 4 a.m. till 2 o'clock in the afternoon daily during the Paris Games, with the decision aligning with NBC's strategy of streaming all of the Summer Games live on Peacock following a precedent sent back in 2022. The Summer Games will again tip off and start on July 26th in Paris, with Gold Zone premiering the following day on July 27th. With that, folks, in mind, we will cut out of here for the day. We will, though, folks, be back with you later on the night for Sports Minute back here on Coast to Coast Entertainment. But again, folks, as a reminder once more, some housekeeping here again. You folks have time still to join our C2C March Madness group on ESPN.com. Just log on to ESPN.com and search the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network in the Men's Tournament Challenge directory and use the network password of C2C2024. Fill out your brackets and play alongside your favorite host and your fellow fans of Coast to Coast. And also, again, folks, as well, coming up on May 4th will be live coverage on C2C of the annual Backyard Brew Games Cornhole Tournament live from Eugene, Oregon. Join the entire cast and crew beginning at high noon on May 4th for a full day of coverage of the annual Backyard Brew Games Cornhole Tournament. And they'll be live in Eugene, Oregon at high noon right here on C2C coming up in early May. With that, folks, a big thank you again to Sean Mears and to James Gonzalez and Big Baby John Soulful. Yours truly, Callan McClurg, folks, bidding you a pleasant rest of your day. We'll see you back here again on Sports Minute at 9 o'clock Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, 11 p.m. Central Time back here on C2C. With that, folks, have a good day and a rest of your day. We'll see you back here again later. Till then, good day. Bye-bye.